Beware.
The Darkside of Hollywood, Part 2, The Screenwriter. Imagine, if you will, the feelings and emotions you would be experiencing of finally achieving your life's goal, finally reaching the top of whatever profession or craft you've chosen in this life. Now imagine that path leading you to Hollywood, the fame, the glitz, the glamour, everything that's associated with being a star. How exciting and exhilarating it must feel to have finally reached the top. We now look in on an individual who has recently found his Hollywood success story and whose star is seemingly on the rise. The setting we find ourselves in is a 2-room Spanish-style bungalow on the outskirts of Beverly Hills. While quite suitable for a struggling upcoming writer, it just doesn't quite fit the bill for an established screenwriter, or at least that's what Ryan's friends tell him. But he is still quite pleased with the tiny domicile. Speaking of Ryan, he is who the subject of our latest story is about. The writer in question, Ryan Rush, a man who is coming to grips with a question I posed to you all to start our latest journey. After years of struggling as a writer of short stories that were published here and there in magazines, and occasionally a staff writer on shows such as I Love Lucy and The Honeymooners, Ryan has finally found his star on the rise. He has suddenly found himself to be in quite the demand after landing a contract with MGM Studios following the submission of his first screenplay. It is said that Louis B. Mayer read it himself and was so intrigued, so enthralled, that he greenlit the project on the spot. Needless to say, after the news leaked out, Ryan's name began to spread like wildfire throughout the industry. So why is it we find our latest Hollywood success story sitting at his desk, staring at his typewriter in his darkened living room? Instead of happiness and joy as his emotions, you can see he looks frightened and worried. If you look closer, you can see his forehead drip with sweat and heavy bags under his eyes, as if he hasn't slept in days. What is plaguing our young screenwriter's mind? I direct your attention to the desktop and the 2 items lying next to Ryan's trembling hand. First, a copy of his screenplay, The Rebel Movie Star, about a young star who seemingly came from nowhere and took Hollywood by storm, but liked to live life on the edge with his fast cars and fast lifestyle until it all ended one night in a tragic car accident. The second item is a newspaper from this morning with a tragic headline reporting of James Dean's untimely death in a fiery automobile accident. Ryan probably wouldn't have given it a second thought if the similarities weren't eerily familiar. The character was loosely written based on James Dean and his lifestyle. Hell, the studio heads, the producers of the film, and Ryan just had lunch with James the other day, discussing starring in the picture, and rumors are the star agreed, and a contract was already silently agreed upon. There were just too many coincidences for Ryan to ignore, especially the manner of death between his character and James, which were exactly the same. Was he cursed? Bad luck? Or was this all just an extreme matter of horrific coincidence? Ryan wasn't sure, but his friends and loved ones convinced him it was just a mere coincidence and to move on. The studio moved on, and the movie continued with a new lead, playing Ryan's character, starring Steve McQueen. The movie was a success and received multiple Oscar nominations and wins, including Best Original Screenplay for Ryan Rush. From there on out, it was up and up for Mr. Rush. After the subsequent success of the Rebel movie star, with countless projects and even more awards achieved, he was now the most sought-after screenwriter in Tinseltown, the very best. With each passing project and latest success, the memory of the tragedy fades from his mind. While there have been minor incidences involving his movies, there's been nothing to the effect of what happened during the Rebel movie star. We now fast forward 4 years, almost 5 to be exact, and we find our legendary screenwriter in a familiar setting, alone in the dark, secluded in his study, inside his mansion in Beverly Hills, sitting at his writing desk. Despite the massive upgrade in his surroundings, he sits alone at his desk, once again with a look of fear and solemnness on his face. Once again you can see the sweat dripping from his forehead and the weariness on his face. He is once again plagued by heavy burdens. Beside him sits his 2 latest screenplays and multiple newspapers, and in front of him still, in his typewriter, sits the screenplay he is currently working on, unfinished, but almost at its completion. The first screenplay, which was written a few short weeks ago, is titled A Superhero's Comeback, the story of a television star who found stardom playing a very prominent superhero in the early days of television, to finding his star fade after the show's end and his constant typecast and lack of prominent roles, to then start his comeback to only have it end with his untimely death, which is surrounded in mystery and controversy. Next to that screenplay sits the newspaper published 2 days after the screenplay was greenlit for approval by the movie studio. The headline reported of the mysterious, untimely death of George Reeves, the actor who played Superman. It says he may have taken his own life during a party he and his wife were having, but there is evidence saying otherwise and contradicting eyewitness accounts. Truly a mysterious death. The incident has given Ryan reminiscent feelings from 4 years earlier of dread and disbelief. His character dies similarly to the real-life star, and he used said star as inspiration when writing his script, and even had the star in mind to star in the picture. This news has had Ryan in seclusion for the past 2 weeks, filled with angst, but the most recent screenplay and newspaper article might send him completely over the edge. His latest screenplay, which was just given the go-ahead a few days ago, titled When the Music Fades, is about 3 separate musicians and their journeys from obscurity to the top of the music charts, to them hooking up and going on a sold-out tour, to one fateful snowy night where they boarded a plane that would lead to their sudden demise. Next to the screenplay is the newspaper, fresh off the presses. The headline reads, February 3rd, 1959, the day the music died. A picture showing a wreckage of a plane and reporting of the deaths of Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper. left Ryan in almost a state of fear at this point. 3 popular musicians all die in a horrific accident, similar to how his characters die. Our screenwriter sits at his desk, not knowing what to do. The same old questions race through his head once again. Am I cursed? Am I bad luck? Maybe my typewriter is cursed. Or is this all just a horrible coincidence? Just some cruel cosmic fate? Ryan vowed never to write another screenplay, for he feared of any more death. But did he stop? Some say no. Some say he eventually continued, just under a pen name, and that he was responsible for many other stars' untimely deaths. It is rumored that the last screenplay that was sitting in his typewriter near completion was called Legendary, for all the wrong reasons. It's about a famous Oscar-winning actor who kills and stuffs his starlet's wife's body into his Italian sports car's trunk and drives down the darkened California coastal highway to only have a cat jump into the middle of the road that causes the legendary actor to swerve and drive off the cliff into the ocean, killing him. A story very similar to the demise of Julian Craven and the 2-time Oscar-winning actor. A script was greenlit just 3 days before the actor's death, under a different writer's name. We'll never know if the great screenwriter Ryan Rush has a death curse placed upon him, or if his old 1939 Shepard's typewriter was cursed, which some say it was. Their reasoning is the typewriter was missing the number 4, and the screenplays and deaths occurred every 4 years. Who's to say what the reason for these events truly was? What we do know is the answer to the question I posed to you all in the beginning. What would you do if you suddenly found Hollywood stardom thrust upon you? Would you enjoy it? Could you ever give it up? We found out one man's answer. Well, yes, he found himself burdened by the fame at times. He could never really walk away from the fame, even if it's fame that can only be found in the dark side of Hollywood. I would like to give a heartfelt thank you to the special friends of the channel for your overwhelming generosity. If you would like to support the channel, the link is below in the description. Also, please send me your stories and poems to duchessofdarkness27@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram at duchess.ofdarkness and Twitter at duchessofdarkn2. I want to thank all my listeners for your kindness, your encouragement, and your support. It means the world to me. Thank you for joining me. Until next time.